hoped we'd just show up and they'd be here. What they do. I'll say there's a reason that they're rare. And they don't seem to care for people walking around underneath their trees. Chances of seeing them are fairly low. I always imagine one day I'll just come back to the car and there'll be one just there, you know, sitting in a tree. Well, we definitely will see brushed-tailed possums. This is a demonstration on why spotlighting is not the preferred method to find yellow-bellied gliders. There it is. Oh, we got one. Okay. His little tail's quivering, look at that. I work as an ecologist across the Northern Tablelands and northwest New South Wales. My main interest is working with landholders to help them understand their landscape better, the fauna and flora, the natural ecosystems on their farm. We're at Bassendean, which is southwest of Tingha. So our work is focused on arboreal mammals. We've been working across the Tingha Plateau over the last 3 years to survey, in particular the yellow-bellied glider, looking at where they have perhaps been lost from the landscape and where they are missing from the landscape. One of the things we can do is establish hollows using the hollow hog, where we drill into the core of the tree and we put an entrance on that's suitable for gliders. And then we monitor these hollows, putting up remote cameras and watch what happens and whether they get used.
This has been an Aboriginal place to walk and look after and think about all the time. Even if you were sick, sometimes you could come out here, and if you was with a certain person, they'd take you to a place in the property here, what the Aboriginals used to eat, and also the things that they used to dig out of the ground and every stuff like that. If you were sick and if you were out cold, it'd take it away in about a day. It's with the brown. They've got to be white on the hen. What you do is 1, 2, 3, like that. How far travel, yeah. How far it is too. And this Bassendean has been, to me, it's just home, yeah.
Have you seen the yellow-bellied glider yourself?
When I was young, very, very young, yeah. When the old man, we used to go fishing with him. And when I was going to school and I started off working here, so I was, say about 12 years old or something like that, and that's when I seen one first or something. Because I used to do 3 days riding around the fence, and you'd see all different kinds of animals, and and that's when I brought a couple of people up, a couple of the Parks and Wildlife mob up, just to show them where it was.
So in 2019 there was the Tingha Plateau bushfire. That fire followed a drought. Like from 2017 to 2019 there was a really severe drought. We found that across the plateau a lot of the trees just died, especially the stringy barks and some of the woodlands on the shallower soils. And then the Tingha Plateau fire kind of topped that off. Local Land Services initiated this project to look at whether the yellow-bellied gliders and other arboreal animals had survived. The concern was that after the drought and fire, there was hollow trees, but they were the dead ones. There was a lack of living hollow trees.
Not a panacea, but it's a foothold in, so that if we're putting hollows in the landscape, we're replacing what was lost or what was potentially there with logging gone and that sort of thing. In this particular case, using the hollow hog, it has a few advantages over nest boxes and things like that, in that it can go into a moderately aged but relatively new forest, so 50 years, where hollows haven't started to develop naturally, and it can bring that about. They may not be the limiting resource in the landscape. So we're supplementing it, but if a continual food source throughout the year is the limiting factor, then we have to address that as well. If lack of water or whatever it might be, limiting factor, then we have to address that as well. Or hollow development in the landscape is something that takes a long time, so therefore augmentation just kicks that along a bit quicker. When we're looking at hollows, we're looking at moderately aged regrowth forests with low hollow availability. Now, they've either been cleared in this area due to post-mining, where a lot of old timber, the 1900s and that, was used for not just struts and that in mining, but also the steamers and that sort of thing, they were fuel. So a lot of big old stuff was taken.
So New South Wales is a pretty big state, and when you look at conservation reserves, the conservation reserves would only make up a small portion of that state. Private landholders own up to 70% of the state. So it can't be just up to the public reserve system to protect the animals that live across the whole of the state. And what we like to do is work with private landholders to encourage them to put a value on the native bushland, to see that it's worth protecting, that there are creatures that need to move throughout the landscape. They might need stepping stones between public reserves. They need to perhaps live in landscapes within our agricultural system. Protecting and managing and conserving your fauna and flora on a farm, if everyone did a little bit of that across the whole landscape, we'd have this network of habitat, so the animals, the birds can move throughout the landscape and spread. It may be that there's some pockets like this that become really critical for their survival. So to me, private landholders have a huge role to play, and there can be a lot of reward from them as well.